Hello and welcome. This is Robert Blackman. Welcome to the MLM Mile, where there's never anything to buy, but there's always something to learn. Today, I wanted to just kind of do an impromptu video on something that I experienced over the Thanksgiving holidays. We were watching and rented The Man of Steel, and watching it with the family, and there was a point in the movie where Superman was watching his earthly father, which was played by Kevin Costner, get caught up in a tornado, and his dad said, "No, don't use your powers to save me," and he didn't, because his dad was always telling him that they'll reject your powers, they'll be afraid of them, and so on. And so I found myself getting very emotional at that moment in time. Not only was it a moving point in the movie itself, but I was starting reflecting on my own father, who passed away in September of 2002 from lung cancer here at our own home in Norman. We just moved into our house in August of late July of that year, and he moved in with us sick. Taking him over here to Norman Regional and getting him some cancer treatments. And my dad and I had some very beautiful last moments in life. He refused to stay in our bedroom, our master bedroom, which was downstairs, and so he had to stay upstairs where we had 3 bedrooms. And he could barely walk up the stairs. Matter of fact, the last couple of weeks he would have to sit backwards in the stairs, and I would get behind him and grab him and hoist him up one stair at a time, and then he'd say, "Wait," and he'd be winded by that because the cancer, he lost 60 pounds in 60 days. And so he and I had an opportunity to heal during that time period, which was very, very important for our relationship. And I was able to talk to him about his mom, his first marriage, which I never knew anything about, and particularly about World War II. Dad wasn't one of the original that hit Normandy Beach, but he was one of the replacements. And if you've ever watched Band of Brothers, you know what that means. He was one of the replacements. Dad was very clear about, I'd asked him, I said, why are you never afraid of anything? That was the thing that always got me about my father. He was this 6'3", 240, 250 pound guy that when he walked in the room, it was like George Patton had just walked in the room, or MacArthur. He just had that carry about him. And he said, I've watched my best friends step on a landmine 10 feet in front of me, blown up into a tree and fall back down in my arms dead. Because I've had people die, where we would take cover, and Dad had scars of shrapnel in his back where he had taken cover in a foxhole and turned around, and the guy sitting right next to him is dead. He goes, so I faced death. He goes, so nothing here. He goes, I fought for our freedom, and when I came back home, I said nothing is going to stop me from achieving the American dream. And so Dad owned his own printing company, as many of you know him, and so on. So the point of the story is very simple. I had realized years ago, subconsciously, I did not want to surpass my dad financially. And for men, this is something that is innate in all of us, where we always want the approval of our fathers. And we're also just a little bit, I don't know if fearful is a good word, but we don't want to show our dads up. It's almost disrespectful in a way, if you know what I mean. And especially for my father, who carried himself so well. He was a World War II vet, and I never wanted to disrespect my dad. And I found myself, as my network marketing career grew, I'd put Dad in a network marketing program, and I'd say, look, I'm going to put you and Mom and Dad in. We don't have to do anything. Just pay for your auto ship, and a $700 check would show up. They lived up in Colorado Springs, and so I'd go up and see them. And this was back in the day where you had these big printouts, these little fan foldouts of your downline. So he goes, bring your downline with me. I want to know what you're doing. And almost like he didn't believe it. Like, how could you be making this much money without working hard? So he never really correlated duplication. So I'd sit there with him and I'd go through it. He goes, well, who's this guy here? And I go, I don't know. And he'd grab my arm and go, son, you got to get to know these people if you're going to make some money off of them or with them. He goes, this could all just go away in a minute. He goes, I'm worried about you and your wife. And he would, and every time that he and I would sit down, he'd reach in his pocket and he'd hand me something, and I'd look at it, and it would be that month's commission check. No matter what month of the year or what program it was, he was always handing me back that check. And from my perspective, I was trying to pay it back to him. Not pay it forward, but pay it back to my dad. And said, no, that's for you and Mom. And so, and Mom would say, he won't ever cash them. He gives them to me and I have to go cash them. So there was always this kind of, I don't think it's anxiety, but it just, we never clicked when it came to working together. And I remember one time he had joined, and I'll name the name of the company because they're no longer in business, Quorum, a group in Quorum up in Colorado Springs. And so he brought me into the meeting, and Mom had told me, hey, your dad's joined a network marketing company. And, I was taken back a little bit that he didn't join with me or ask me to join. But another part of me, I was going, well, good for him. He's stepping out on his own, and he's building an organization. He gets it. I've infected him with the network marketing virus. Well, come to find out, because Dad still had a printing press in the garage, that he was just going there to sell business cards. He didn't have anybody in his downline. And he'd stand up, and he did it the day that I was there. In the training part of the meeting, after the meeting, he said, I'm Bob Blackman, and any of you all need business cards, meet me in the back here. And I was just like, oh, Dad, don't, So my dad and I had a unique relationship early on in our lives. Dad was an alcoholic. Physically, I was beaten. I'm not the only person in the world could ever say that. At a young age, at 4 or 5, beaten so much in the face where I couldn't go to school for a week. And so when I was 12, my parents, as my dad said, we got religion. They became saved, born-again Christians. And so I started going to church. Not because I wanted to go to church, but I wanted it because I wanted Mom and Dad to stop fighting. I wanted them to stop drinking, and I wanted Dad to stop hitting me. And so at that point, at age 12 on, I found myself in this position of always wanting Dad's approval. And I don't know if you could relate to that as a son. And then as I got older and I found my own way and my own strength to stand up to my dad and break away from the family printing business, start my own printing company, which created a big rift in our family, and go out and make my own way with network marketing, I found psychologically and subconsciously thinking about my dad all the time. When I'd get a big check-in, or if I was listening to a motivational cassette back in those days, or going to a convention where there were 10,000 screaming people and we were yelling freedom, and I'd be thinking about my dad and the men, the band of brothers that had fought for my freedom, and I just always wanted to bring my dad with me, and I couldn't. And I found myself making more money than my dad, and I felt guilty. I did. I felt guilty, and it's like Dad would say, well, hey, well, we're doing all right. I stopped showing him my checks. I stopped telling Mom because I knew Mom would tell Dad secretly, hey, they made $15,000 last month. Hey, they made $80,000. And so I think for the challenge for me, and I guess what I'm trying to share today here on the MLM Mile, is that we all struggle with our relationships with our parents. Both of my parents are passed and gone. When my dad died, I had to write a $4,300 check to bury him because he had no burial insurance, he had no life insurance, there was nothing there, nothing for Mom. I had to help Mom out during those time periods until she got transitioned to her Social Security and so on and so on. So in all of the respect that I had for my father, he wasn't financially sound. And that hurts as a young man because you want to look up to your dads and you want to be proud of them in all areas. And when you start to pass your father in an area, there's a problem as a young man because you're always wanting your father's approval. And that's something I struggled with for years. And even as my dad has been gone for over 10 years now, it still captivates my thoughts. And I found myself on the couch with 8 of us there and family members there fighting back the tears of that scene in the Man of Steel because I missed my dad. And there was a part of me that said, no, don't help me. Don't help me. Don't save me. And so if you struggle with anything about that, you're not alone. And so I just found that what I had to do is I had to make it okay. And I had to give myself permission to exceed the places that my father had been and to be the person that I was born to be, even though it meant that I wasn't showing up my dad or disrespecting him in any way whatsoever, but I was honoring him, truly honoring him for the man that he was but also the man that he helped make me be. And so I just, during the holiday season, I know family can be a very emotional and psychological type of issue. And so I just wanted to share that with you today. And ladies, that's what your man struggles with, whether he knows it or not, is getting his father's approval and not wanting to disrespect his dad or not wanting to surpass him or show him up, but always show him respect. And I think the best way that you can show your father respect, whether he's alive or not, is go be the man that you were meant to be. And that's what I've done, and that's how I have crafted that in my mind. And I look up every day and I go, Dad, thanks. Thanks for who you were, and thank you for allowing me to be the man who God intended me to be. So anyway, hope that helps you in any of your struggles that maybe you have with your business. But it's okay. It's okay to make more money than your dad. It's okay. And it's okay for them not to accept it, because you have to go out and find your own path in this world. And I don't know of any place better to do it than as a network marketing professional. So anyway, I will see you on the next MLM Mile.